Some days it's hard to get motivated. You're slammed at work, you come home, you've got family issues to deal with, dinner to make, and the very last thing on your mind is sitting down at your sewing machine. I get it because I've been there. I have to remind myself of all the reasons I should go sew and stop making excuses. Today, I'm sharing my thought process and giving you the pep talk you need to get sewing. Yes, it's true. Sometimes I also have a lack of motivation to get sewing, which you may think is crazy since I have a sewing channel and this is pretty much what I do and share with the rest of you, but it's true. Some days I'm just like, I just don't want to do it. And it's not anything in particular, but it's usually on those days or weeks when I've been really, really busy at work and I've had family stuff to deal with and I'm just feeling tired. And all I really want to do is go sit in front of the TV and binge watch some fashion competition programs. But I have to remind myself that, hey, watching other people sew is not the same as me sewing, and I'll get more enjoyment and fulfillment from doing it myself. So, this is my thought process that I want to share with you today to get back at your sewing machine and making things that you will love. Now, one of the big reasons I have a lack of motivation is when I'm short on time. And I have to remind myself that I have enough time in the day to accomplish everything I want to accomplish. It's about prioritizing those things and doing what matters the most. So obviously, I have to go to work in the morning and I have to do that and I have to make dinner at night and I have to feed my pets. But the rest of the time is more malleable in that I can decide what I want to do when. And some days I just need to remind myself that sitting down in front of my sewing machine and working on whatever it is I have to work on is the best use of my time. And if I have that mindset, then I can prioritize it and actually have the time to go do it. Planning your sewing projects is a huge part of time management. Now, you may not have the aspiration to make 4 garments or 6 garments in a month like I generally do, which is a lot for most people. I'll admit that. You might just want to make one project. So, if you plan it in advance, then you can have everything ready to go once you're ready to start. So, if you've got 15 minutes, you can go cut out the paper pattern and then put it aside and save it for another day. And when you have more time, you can come back and then cut out all the fabric. Then put that aside and come back another day. And once you actually start the sewing process, you can just do it one step at a time. Like, okay, first I'm going to sew all the side seams together. And if you only have 10 or 15 minutes, you can completely achieve that in that amount of time. Feel like you've accomplished something and then put it away until the next day. No one ever said that you have to make a garment start to finish, from cutting out the pattern to finishing the last stitches of that hem in one day. It's outrageous to think that you do, but for some reason we all have this set thing in our head, and maybe it's from watching too many Project Runways or Next in Fashion or Making the Cut, where they impose these deadlines on the designers, and that's what makes us think the same thing. But realistically, it's better to just sew things in the amount of time that you have. And by planning ahead and having your project ready to go, you are capable of doing that. Fabric choice plays a huge part in keeping you motivated to sew. And I know this from personal experience. That's why I buy fabric that I absolutely love and I'm excited to work with it, because I've bought the fabric that was just, whatever, it's cheap, I'm just going to make this. And let me tell you, that does not work. Number one, you're never motivated to sew a fabric you don't love. It's just kind of ho hum. You know, you're not motivated to spend the time to actually make it into something that you want to wear. And then, third, if you do actually get it done, you're really probably not going to be super inclined to wear it because you've messed around with it for so long and now you're really tired of this fabric that you only had lukewarm feelings with to start with. So take my advice, buy fabric that excites you, buy colors that you love, and save it. I'm not advocating fabric hoarding. I'm just saying that, sometimes it's a good idea to buy the fabric when you find it, when it excites you, and save it for that day when you really need some motivation to get up and go sew, because then you'll see your fabric and fall in love with it all over again and say, yes, I want to make something out of this, and today is that day. Now, you may be wondering, what's a good type of pattern to start sewing when you don't have a lot of confidence, you don't have a lot of time, and you're not really sure where to start? I've got you. Skirts. Skirts are always the answer to everything for me because number one, I love a good skirt, and number two, they're relatively quick and easy compared to anything else. You do not have to worry about sleeves, which you do, have to think about when you're making shirts or jackets or most dresses. And you do not have to worry about the fit of the crotch seam if you're making pants. So that's why I love skirts. They're pretty easy to make. And they look good on everybody. I really have yet to see somebody that does not look good in a skirt. So, that's my take on it. If you are afraid of putting in a zipper because you don't know how, don't panic. You can make a wrap skirt. There are a lot of wrap skirt patterns out there in the pattern books today, and wrap skirts don't have zippers. You just wrap them around. You might have to sew on a snap, but they're very easy to make, and that will get you started. And that's the whole point of all of this, is to do something that you feel like you can tackle with your current sewing skills and then start building from there. I want to share something with you today. Y'all know I've got all kinds of stuff back here on these cork boards behind me, but I have a quote that I cut out of a magazine back in college in the 90s that I carry around with me pretty much everywhere. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know who said this. I believe it was part of some kind of ad campaign that's long gone. And I've taken this quote with me to all of my corporate legal jobs and put it on a cork board where I can read it every day. And now it sits behind my sewing machine. It says, "Insecurity knocks from time to time. Let it in for a cup of coffee. Talk with it. Understand it. Then take that sugar spoon and poke it in the eye." And yeah, I get insecure too. And I've used this quote a lot when I've done my corporate legal work because I was very insecure when I was doing that job. And I keep it to remind me that I can do hard things. And most of the time, those insecurities are not well founded. And if you're feeling insecure about your sewing abilities, think about why. Why do you feel insecure? Because you haven't done it a lot? Because you make things and they don't turn out great? You know what? That's all about learning. And think about when you were a kid and you tried to ride a bike for the first time. You fell off and you kept falling off, but you also kept getting back on. And that's how we learn. You're not going to be able to go make a Vogue designer hard pattern the first time you sit down and sew. It's just the reality of the situation. You need to practice, and you need to actually do the work and sew the seams and make the buttonholes and figure out how to put in sleeves and do all of those things that all build on each other in order to get to the next level. And you may be thinking, well, Tony, you have a sewing channel, you do all the sewing all the time. I only started sewing regularly, and I'm talking weekly, not necessarily daily, but weekly on a regular basis back in 2020. I lost my job in the pandemic. As some of you know, I'm a lawyer and I work in traffic court here in Texas, and the court shut down. And my last day of work in 2020 was Friday the 13th, which, when you think about it now, it's kind of funny. But when everything shut down, we thought it was going to last a couple of weeks, maybe a month, we'd all be back. And then it didn't. And then my boss gave me the bad news that, hey, yeah, you need to file for unemployment because I can't pay you guys. If nobody's writing traffic tickets and there's no court to have, it's over. So I was depressed for a couple of days. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to go sew. I'm going to go back in my sewing room and I'm going to get it all cleaned up and pull out some of my favorite fabrics and start making things. Because number one, I didn't know what else to do. But number two, sewing always makes me feel good. And I thought, I finally have the time where I don't have to go to work and I'm just going to sew. And the first things that I made did not work out well. They just didn't. They didn't really fit. I gained a few pounds during the pandemic, like most of us did. And that size 14 A-line skirt that I'd been planning on making for years and had already cut out the pattern in the size 14 didn't quite fit. It was a little bit like sausage casing. But you know what? I've still got it. I still love the fabric I made it with. I did a pretty good job making it. And I'll get back down to that size eventually. My point is that even for me, who majored in textile and apparel design way back when, who's designed original costumes and, spent a year at grad school learning more about that and sewing more, even I was rusty just because I hadn't done it regularly in a long time. But let me tell you, if you start sitting down at your sewing machine and working through the various garments you want to make, little by little, your skills are going to get better, just like mine did. And it's a learning process. And you can't beat yourself up. And you can't be hard on yourself and say that you're stupid because you didn't figure it out. You're learning. Would you say that to your younger self when you were trying to ride a bike or trying to learn how to read or trying to learn how to do math, which some of us still aren't great at? I'll raise my hand on that one. Give yourself the grace to learn. And it's a new skill. But I promise that if you do, you're going to realize that little by little, things get easier and you get better and you rip a lot less seams. Now, I still rip seams all the time because I want to make sure that things look right and that they fit right. And if I have to rip out a couple of seams to do that, I do. I just don't cry about it anymore like I did back in college when, I had a grade on the line. So it happens to the best of us. We make mistakes, but the key in sewing is to learn from those mistakes and not make them again. And if you're having a hard time figuring it out, you can always email me, okay? I am here for you. I love sewing. I love talking about sewing. If you send me an email, you will get a response within 24 hours because sometimes I get busy with other stuff. But I will email you back. So you don't have an excuse. I'm here. Email me. Leave a comment under a video. You can leave one under this video. If you ever have questions, I'm here for you to help you get them answered and to figure out how to sew it better. Now, sometimes the best way to get back into sewing is with the quick win. And that's the kind of project where you just sit down and do it start to finish in a couple of hours or less. And by the end of it, you have a finished project that you could be proud of. Now, I'm super excited to announce that I am having the very first Sew Lounge Sew Along next Saturday, and I'm going to be sewing a zip bag live. So we'll see how it goes. But this is the type of bag we will be making. This is actually a little zip bag that my sister brought me from Zambia when she went for work. I think it's a really great little design. Zipper on top. It's just a rectangle, and it is lined on the inside. So I'm going to be taking you through the steps to make this. We're going to sew it with all of the seams on the inside, and then we're going to flip it back through the side seam so that everything is all nice and finished and we don't have to worry about seam finishes. And in the end, we will have this cute little zip bag. And it's a perfect project if you've got any small pieces of fabric lying around that are in your scrap bin, or if you want to make something fancy. This is a great little bag. I use this one for my embroidery tools when I travel. So I have my scissors and thread and needles and thimble in this little bag. It could also be a makeup bag. The cool thing about this project is once you get the hang of it, you can change the length of the zipper and the size of the rectangle to pretty much whatever you want. So you could make a fancy pencil bag. You could make a larger bag to put maybe my embroidery hoop as well in there for travel. And that's what we're going to be working on. So if you're interested, there is a link below this video to register. It's totally free. You just need to register so I know how many people are coming, and then I will send you some reminders so that you do not forget. But all the details are in the link below, so be sure to check that out. And I really hope to see you there because we're going to have a great time and you will get a quick win and have a cute finished bag when you're done.